When I was a kid, my two best friends and I loved to play a board game called Risk. Those of you that may not be familiar with Risk, it's basically a game of military world domination. Just Monopoly on a geographical map. Everybody's Napoleon. And we played so often that we knew exactly each other's strategies and why. My friend Vince, he wanted to conquer Europe and then spread into Asia or Africa. Why? Because his mother was born and raised in Naples, and Europe was a beloved place in his heart. My friend Chris wanted to conquer the Americas, and then after that, move over into Russia or Europe. Why? Well, because America. I just wanted Australia. I had no interest in world domination or conquering the world. I just wanted to get off the grid and have adventures with koalas. When we talk about the pursuit of happiness, it's important to recognize that everyone isn't pursuing the same thing, doing it for the same reason, or taking the same approach. Chris was driven by challenge, Vince by nostalgia. I was driven by peace and simplicity. None are right or wrong, it's just a preference. That didn't change the fact that none of us could be happy with the other's approaches. Far too often in our culture has an assumption that the pursuit of happiness is only equated to pursuit of money or power. And if money isn't your happiness pursuit, well, then your priorities are off. I mean, the game of Risk was not made for secluding yourself in Australia and living in peace and peace and tranquility. It's the diversity of happiness that makes our society work. Just think of all the career pursuits that have nothing to do with money, or happiness pursuits that have nothing to do with careers. You know the saying, what would you do if money were no object? That question is usually followed with the idea of, well, do it for money anyway. I contend that the pursuit of happiness is a form of self-compassion. So do it regardless of money. A great byproduct of self-compassion is building happiness. So if the requirement of profit is not a distraction, the pursuit will remain pure. So I ask you, what is your pursuit of happiness? What would you do if money, time, or fear were no object? I submit that if you find that thing and dedicate time to it, you will soon gain trust in it. And if you find that the combination of time and trust will land you in a true pursuit of happiness.
This sermon is the first in a two-part series. In response to this hard time that we're in, our focus today will be on the inner journey. Breathe in. What can I do? Self-compassion and self-care for such a time as this. This is the put on your own oxygen mask first sermon, or we're all going to pass out. Next Sunday, we'll shift our focus to the outer journey, the breathe out. What can we do? How ordinary people can and have created extraordinary change. In that service next week, we'll be exploring some of the insights of the history of civil resistance that can inform and inspire our work for justice in this present moment. There's a lot of confusion, and we'll talk about what civil resistance is and isn't. And that confusion could truly cost us dearly if we mix up what does and doesn't work. For both sermons, a touchstone quote is from Cornel West that tenderness is what love feels like in private, but justice is what love looks like in public. And that looks like a lot of things, but at least to me, it includes a stable floor for all so that everyone is able to live a dignified life. This week, we'll focus on the first half of that quote. How do we take care of ourselves so that we can continue to live and thrive, and also to sustain the work of justice without burning out? As Audre Lorde said, caring for myself is not self-indulgence, it is self-preservation, and that is an act of political warfare, especially in a time of oppression. This insight becomes even more important. So how do we do that? How do we take care of ourselves in such a time as this? I thought Gerard's spoken meditation was a good start in naming that's going to look like different things for different ones of us. So I want to give you a menu of some possible options, and I appreciate this comes from a chart created by two of my colleagues. If you're feeling overwhelmed, it can really help to pause. Don't look at this chart first. If you look at this chart first, you're just going to be even more overwhelmed by too many options. So you got to pause first and just take some deep breaths and then ask yourself what you need, and then really listen. Like, what does my heart need? What does my mind need? What does my body need? What is my spirit longing for? Because sometimes this breathing in that I'm inviting us to think about before we think about breathing out, this breathing in and taking care of yourself, sometimes it looks like removing yourself as quickly as possible from a stressful situation, if that's an option. Other times you may need some combination of recalibration, of rest, of refilling, or reconnection, to the extent that's available to you, right? Parent of a 21-month-old, I get that, like, all that stuff is like, yeah, well, that sounds good, but when am I doing those things? Because this baby's not going to watch himself. For this week, I want to give you some, and next week we'll look at that last one in depth of resist, because that is certainly another option. For this week, I want to give you some examples of what those first 5 categories might look like, and pay particular attention if one or two of these really resonate with you, and then of course you can kind of make your own chart of what would really work for you. So let's start with remove. Retreating or drawing a boundary might look like, if you can't leave the room, you can't leave the stressful situation, is there like a window you can just look out of? That can really help just to shift your attention. Or just excuse yourself. I've often found I need to use the bathroom is like a really good way to give yourself a hot second. And like take longer than seems appropriate if you need to. If people ask you about it, like they're telling on themselves and telling you like they're not a safe person. Put down your phone if you need to. Take a break from news, especially the frequency. Like you don't need to check in every hour. You don't even need to check in, multiple times a day. Dorothy Day used to say that she found out everything she needed to know by reading the newspaper once a week. Like that was like sufficient for her. Turn off social media. Again, kind of what is the frequency that you're taking and is that serving you? Other times you may just need to recalibrate, take in a few deep breaths, really doing that. Or you've heard me sometimes say, one deep breath, or asking your body, what one yoga pose do I need right now? I don't have time for a yoga practice, but I can do one pose. It's like taking a remote control and like shifting yourself. It's like you're taking a deep breath or doing that yoga pose. It's really kind of shifting your inner or outer climate. Name just 5 things you can see in the room. That can be a surprisingly grounding practice, just to like reorient yourself. Tense or relax 5 muscles. Kind of hold them really tightly and then relax them. That also can really shift things. Create a playlist. Create your everything's a dumpster fire playlist. Like what songs do you need to hear when everything's a dumpster fire? Or some people, this is a good example of things that really work for some people and don't work for others. Some people swear by this, like holding your thumb like this and then switching the other thumb, doing that for 10, 20, 30 seconds a minute. And this is just an example. You just have to experiment with it. Your mileage may vary, but find the things that work for you. Or do you just need some rest? Watch a favorite film. That's always a sign for me that I'm doing too much. It's when I realize I do not have the bandwidth to watch anything I haven't watched 10 times before. I've just, the most I could possibly do is watch something that's deeply, deeply familiar to me. Or take a nap. Who are my nappers? I am a 20-minute power napper. it really makes a difference for me in the early afternoon. It's not always available to me. But even just I did this yesterday. I laid down for 2 minutes and just closed my eyes, and you set a timer so you don't fall asleep, but that also can make a huge difference. Do all the Danish hygge stuff. Light a candle, be cozy. And who's to lie on their floor with their feet up? Who's ever tried? This works at a 90-degree angle, so your back's flat on the floor and your feet straight up the wall. That's actually a good one. Again, your mileage may vary, but I'm a fan. Do you need to just have a refill? Drink whatever your favorite beverage is. Read a good book. Eat a snack. Y'all know the acronym HALT? Are you hungry, angry, lonely, or tired? You need to stop and fix that before engaging with other humans. Do a puzzle, make art, just getting outside, even just like walking around the building wherever you are can again make a huge difference. Reconnect. Self-care can look like reaching out for connection. You don't have to just do it all yourself. Text or call a friend. Be kind to a neighbor. Just move your body a little. Attend an event that would, because sometimes it's like just getting out. Sometimes like you're glad you actually went. Other times you're not, but other times you really are glad you got out and did something. Send somebody a care package that will delight them. That could actually make you feel better. And finally, resist. I'm not going to go through these because we're going to go in depth next week. Here's the thing. This time in history that we seem to have found ourselves in, this is a hard time, period. I know you all know this. So to make this hard time more workable, it can help to remember that we humans have evolved. If you're here, the way we've evolved is our ancestors had a negativity bias. That's the reason they weren't eaten by the tiger. So as the neuroscientist Rick Hansen writes in his book, Buddha's Brain, our brains have evolved to be like Velcro for bad things and like Teflon for good things. We latch on to the bad things and we perseverate on them. We just fixate on them. And those good things, it's just so easy for them to slip away. This negativity bias helped our ancestors survive back when is that wind causing that bush to sway? Or is there a tiger behind there? So like the ones who like had the bias that even when it was just the wind, they assumed it was the tiger, like they survived and we have inherited their negativity bias. But today that evolutionary inheritance can really be a burden, especially when we experience this constant barrage of terrible things that our brains are just Velcroing onto. Neuroscience tells us that to counterbalance that negativity bias, we really need a 3-to-1 ratio of good things to bad things. So like every new bad thing you hear about, you need 3 more good things. So it's like you keep on social media and you're like doom scrolling. It's like 3, 6, 9, 12. It's just like going up. So it's like stop doom scrolling. Like you're aware it's bad, right? So and if you need like help identifying like the bad thing, just go to our homepage. Look at the Democracy Action Team. They're already doing the work for you of like what are the most effective actions we can take, and taking those actions can really help as well. So to get more positive in your life, one of the single most helpful practices that neuroscience tells us that I've also found for years is incredibly effective in my own life, it's simply savoring. So instead of just like hopping over that really nice thing someone said to you, or that really beautiful picture, or that amazing flower, or this delightful foam art that the barista created, like savor that. Don't just say, oh, that's nice. Truly, if you just take 5, 10, 20 seconds or more to just really let it sink in and soak in, you're like superpowering that, you're overcoming that Teflon part of your brain and really helping counterbalance the negative. You really look for those things that remain good and true and beautiful and really sink in and savor them. You may even want to put reminders notes where you can see it. Get out a dry erase marker and write on your mirror, or put little Post-it notes where you can say something like, remember to savor the good stuff. I invite you to experiment with this. I really do think it will make a difference. Any savers out? Who are my savers? All right, I see some savers. All right. Along with savoring, another really helpful practice that neuroscience tells us really, really works, it was kind of like, is self-compassion. So if you go back like 15 years or so, people were starting to talk about self-compassion. And since that time, we've gone from like, we think this works, to this mountain of scientific evidence that self-compassion is incredibly powerful. If this sermon inspires you to learn more, I think a really good entry point is Kristen Neff's book, Self-Compassion. Who's read it? I know quite a few of you have. She's an associate professor of human development and culture at the University of Texas at Austin. If you look you have to have really good vision, but if you can see at the very, who actually can read that? Okay, here's my fighter pilots out there who can. That's a blurb from Brene Brown saying, quote, "This book is a transformative read." That's a very strong endorsement. So if Brene Brown is blurbing your book, you're doing well. Dr. Neff's book is filled with many exercises for self-compassion. If you really want to get into it, she also has a mindful self-compassion workbook that she co-authored with her colleague, Christopher Germer. Or if you're like, I just cannot read another book right now, did you hear that part about being overwhelmed? If you will use your favorite search engine to go to the Center for Mindful Self-Compassion that Neff and Germer have opened, there's a bunch of free guided meditations there. So that's something you can also link to, just if you want, okay, I have 5 minutes, let them lead me through a self-compassion meditation. Right now, I want to share with you just my favorite one. It's called a self-compassion break. So if you're comfortable doing so, just put one hand on heart center and put one hand on your abdomen, your core, or anywhere else that feels soothing. Sometimes just you may can feel this right now, just offering ourselves this kind of compassionate touch. I do this in public, there's no shame in my self-compassion game, that can really begin to shift something right there, this kind of embodiment. If you're comfortable doing so, you can kind of shift your body around a little bit into a posture where you're more relaxed but alert. And if you're comfortable doing so, you can close your eyes. All of that's up to you. The rest of this practice simply involves saying 3 phrases, gently, softly, compassionately to yourself. The first is, and you can say this silently after me, just noting this is a moment of suffering. Maybe not right now, maybe you're enjoying this, but in the world, just saying, acknowledging, this is a moment of suffering. It can sound really obvious, but there is real power in naming things, in mindfully acknowledging the reality of our situation and doing so in a heartful, embodied way where you're intentionally engaging your heart and your body. This is a moment of suffering. You can, of course, adjust this language in the future to what feels right to you. Secondly, dropping the second phrase into your consciousness, suffering is a part of life, just part of this being human. That can also sound really obvious, but we're tapping into realizations that Buddhism and other spiritual traditions have long lifted up as essential for liberation, and that modern psychology also affirms. Difficult experiences are part of being alive, but can connect us profoundly to our common shared humanity. Suffering is a part of life. Everyone faces challenges. Third, and this is the really crucial part that you're preparing yourself for with those first 2 phrases, saying to yourself, setting the intention, may I be kind to myself in this moment. May I be kind to myself in this moment. We can't always control these difficulties that come at us and others that we love, but we can set an intention for how will we respond. And there is tremendous, tremendous power in choosing to set the intention, may I be kind to myself in this moment. If these phrases we've been using don't feel quite right, imagine that a close friend is facing the same difficulties you are. What would you say to them, heart, to soothe and comfort them? And then offer that message to yourself. And now, as you feel ready, gently open your eyes and return your attention to the room. So that self-compassion practice may seem simple, mindfully noting the suffering that's arising. This is a moment of suffering. Then reminding ourselves that all sentient beings suffer. There is unsatisfactoriness. Suffering is a part of life. And then setting an intention to be compassionate to ourselves. May I be kind to myself. Yet this simple practice, I've experienced as others have, can create this significant shift in how we're experiencing ourselves, others, and this world. We'll talk more next week about how to choose, again, the most effective ways of lessening the suffering in the world, because that should be one of our goals too. But for today, I want to invite us to spend just a little more time reflecting on how we do respond to all the terrible and frightening news. And to do so, I want to share with you just a little more about a simple framework that has really stuck with me over the years. It's also from Rick Hansen, who wrote Buddha's Brain, but this is from another of his books called Hardwiring Happiness. He uses the color coding of a stoplight for noticing what is happening in the state of our self. Are we in a green means go situation to like engage with other humans in the world? Are we in a red light, like we're seeing red and we need to stop engaging with other humans in the world until we get right with ourselves? When we're feeling safe and centered and connected, it's easier to skillfully, wisely, generously, compassionately respond in the best possible way with the best version of ourselves. That's what Hansen calls green responsive mode. But when we're feeling threatened and anxious and discombobulated and overwhelmed, we have downshifted into red reactive mode and can be triggered by the least little thing. To get a little nerdy about it, your amygdala has been engaged. That's those two almond-shaped clusters of densely packed neurons in the temporal lobes of our brain. The amygdala is what controls the fight, flight, or freeze response, or what is sometimes called the have sex with it or kill it part of our brain. When we are in red reactive mode, we are acting on base animal instinct. And sometimes that state of being is very understandable. As the saying goes, it's actually not paranoid if they really are out to get you. It's actually a rational response to reality. But by no means are we trying to get rid of the amygdala. That evolutionary inheritance can save our life in a truly high threat situation, but it can also cause us to exist, and some of you can probably identify with this, I can, feeling yourself in this ratcheted up state of anxiety. That's when it's not serving us. When we're in this red reactive mode, it's our lizard brain, our brainstem that's acting, and it's keeping our prefrontal cortex. Your prefrontal cortex is what allows you to be rational and compassionate and have clarity and concentration and equanimity. So when we're in our amygdala, we're just in our brainstem. So if you're understandably finding yourself these days spending way too much time in ratcheted up red reactive mode, let's start right now in this present moment. What can we do? You take a deep breath. And you try to let that bleep go. Take another few deep breaths at your own pace. You put one hand on heart center when you're feeling that way. You can put another hand on your solar plexus or core, and again, just offer yourself gentleness, kindness, and compassion. This is hard. To the extent available to me, may I be kind and gentle and compassionate. Because you've been going through a lot. I've been going through a lot. We've been going through a lot. And I invite you to notice in the coming days, notice who are those people, places, things, and activities that during and on the other side of them lead you more in green mode. And who are those people, places, and activities that lead you more in red mode? And how do you get more of the green and less of the red to the extent that it's available to you? In the words of the meditation teacher Jack Kornfield, when we are trying to shift ourselves, he says, tune into your heart. That's where the love is. That's where the wisdom, the grace, and the compassion reside. With loving attention, feel into what matters most to you. Yes, there are anxious thoughts. Yes, there is grief and trauma. But this is the key part, he says. Don't let your heart be colonized by fear. I think that's crucial. Or as the poet Hafiz said, fear is the cheapest room in the house. I want you to live in better conditions. Fear will arise, but practice letting it go before it sets up shop and moves in permanently. Or if you're trying to sleep and you're noticing these problematic, especially political thoughts, or maybe it's trouble at work or other conflicts, I've found it, for me, really helpful to imagine the person that's bothering you lying in bed beside you, and then imagine kicking them out of bed. Do not let dear leader be in bed with you. Kick him out. I'll end for now with a few words from Jack Kornfield again about what is the Buddhist or Bodhisattva response for such a time as this. How will we respond? Will we respond with more greed, hatred, fear, and ignorance? That will only bring more suffering for us and for others. Our call is to bring generosity, clarity, steadiness, and love. This is the time for love. Every time is the time for love, as our UU values say, with love at the center. Trust your dignity and goodness. Where others hoard, choose to help. Where others deceive, stand up for truth. Where others are overwhelmed and uncaring, be kind and respectful. And sometimes you have to start by offering that kindness to yourself before you're ready to offer it to others. These are the parts that are most in our control, and I am grateful to be on that journey with all of you. In that spirit, let's rise, embody your spirit. Let's sing together hymn 1009, Meditation on Breathing. We'll sing it through twice. Following the postlude, I'll try to get the class started around 10:45, again, either in the sanctuary or online. One final thought for this hymn that we'll sing again next week about, I love it, it's beautiful, this Buddhism-based hymn. When I breathe in peace. When I breathe out love. That's lovely, but then I also just kind of want to name, especially as we look to bridge toward working in the world for resistance, that it isn't all about what do you do when you're breathing in hate and watching the news, and it's not breathing in peace or breathing out love. There's an advanced practice called Tonglen that's for dealing with this, Tonglen, and you'll see often at first many people early on their spiritual journey, they have kind of a fragility that's very understandable early on. Just like my now 21-month-old is a very good walker, but at first he was pretty fragile with the walking, right? And that fragility manifests. Have you ever heard people be like, "Don't tell me about the news, man. You're harshing my mellow. Like, you're disturbing my peace." It's like, well, okay, fair enough. Maybe it is. But that's fragility. And that's actually not the kind of that's reality, but that's not the advanced spiritual practice that we're looking for. But there is a reason we go on retreat. Sometimes we do need to go on retreat and take care of ourselves and all of that. And we need to breathe in peace and love and beauty and all of that. But the more advanced practice is to encounter those Buddhist poisons we talked about last week, you're breathing in hate and greed and ignorance, but you're transmuting that and you're breathing out love and generosity and wisdom, because that's ultimately what this is all about. There's a saying in Zen of like, what is all this meditation for? And the answer is, it's for an appropriate response. That in the arising and passing away of each present moment, you can respond as freely, generously, compassionately, wisely, and lovingly as is available to you. Because that's ultimately what's in your control, is doing just that. That's so much of what the spiritual journey is about. So looking to control what we can control as we enter into the rest of this day and to the week to come, may you continue your journey with love. Care for one another, care for this one earth, do justice and make peace. And as you go, whatever taste or touch you've had in this time and place, even just a little bit more of hope or love or peace or joy, that goes with you out into the world. And in this hard time, continue to look and savor all that remains good and true and beautiful. May you live boldly. May you live with thanksgiving.